My phone buzzed again.
Rohit. Another "good morning, baby" text with a heart emoji. I didn't reply right away. I stared at it until the screen went dark, like it understood what I couldn't say out loud. We'd been together for 4 years. Same school, same hometown, same story.
Different colleges now.
Distance doesn't ruin a relationship, but boredom does. We still talked daily, voice notes, video calls, the occasional "I miss you." But lately, those words just floated between us, light and meaningless. I tucked my phone into my bag and walked into the lecture hall. It smelled of old books, floor cleaner, and stress. I sat in the same row with the same people. I knew what the professor would say before he said it. I could predict which slide he'd click next. The monotony was numbing, and yet it was better than overthinking. I first noticed Karen during an interdepartment event. He didn't stand out at first glance. Confident, sharp-dressed, not loud but present. He made a joke during a presentation that made everyone laugh. Clever, not cringy. I looked up from my notebook, and his eyes met mine for barely a second too long. I looked away, but not before something inside shifted. I didn't think of him again until I saw him in the cafeteria, leaning against the counter, talking to someone with that easy smile of his. Our eyes met again. No words, just a blink, a nod. That was it. I felt stupid for even noticing, but I kept noticing. In the library, when he passed behind me and pulled out a chair near the back. In the hallway, when our shoulders brushed in a narrow corridor. I told myself it was nothing. He probably didn't even recognize me from the event. But my heart reacted like it did when I'd sneak my mom's lipstick in school, nervous and thrilled at the same time. Rohit called that night. I answered, smiled through the screen, answered all the usual questions. How was class?
Did you eat?
Are you okay? Yes, yes, yes. The truth sat heavy on my chest like a wet blanket. He asked if I still wore that ring he gave me. I showed him it was still on my finger. I didn't have the courage to take it off, but it felt tighter lately. Like my skin didn't want to carry it anymore. The next week, I ran into Karen again, this time literally. I turned a corner in the Commerce building too fast, bumped into him, and dropped my file. He caught it midair. You all right? He asked, handing it back. I nodded, muttered thanks, and walked away too quickly. I could feel his eyes on me. I didn't look back. I didn't tell anyone. Not my roommate, not my closest friend. It was mine to hold, whatever it was. Fantasy or curiosity, I couldn't tell. That night, I dreamed of him. Not in some ridiculous sexual way, just being with him. Close enough to feel his breath. Far enough that it stayed safe. I woke up confused, guilty, and warm. My phone buzzed. Rohit again. Did you sleep well? I typed back a smiley face. I meant none of it. Days passed. I started dressing differently, though not obviously. A tighter top, a touch of eyeliner. Stupid things. I wasn't trying to seduce anyone. I just wanted to feel seen. Wanted to feel like I existed outside of my textbook, outside of Rohit's version of me. Maybe that made me awful. Maybe it made me real. Karen started noticing too. He nodded at me in corridors now, sometimes smiled. Never approached, never crossed the line. But I noticed how he looked at me, not like a guy trying to get laid. Like someone curious, patient. The restraint made it worse. If he had been aggressive, it would have been easier to ignore. One evening, I stayed back in the library while my friends left for snacks. I told them I had to finish a report.
Lie.
I just wanted space. I wasn't even reading. I sat staring at my laptop screen when I sensed someone behind me. I didn't turn immediately. A chair scraped.
Karen.
He sat 2 seats away, headphones in, typing something on his phone.
We didn't speak.
But I couldn't focus anymore. My heartbeat was in my throat. I packed my things and left.
Fast.
Not running, but close. As I walked out, I caught a reflection of myself in the glass. Flushed cheeks, shaky breath. Who was I? This wasn't me. Or maybe it was a part of me I'd never given permission to exist. Later that night, Rohit sent me an old photo of us at a beach trip. He added, "We've come so far."
I stared at it. We looked so happy then.
I replied with a heart. locked my phone, and lay in the dark for a long time. I tried to remember what his lips felt like. I couldn't. But I could remember Karen's eyes, how they lingered, the warmth in his gaze, the unspoken dare in it. I kept replaying it in my mind, every encounter, every wordless exchange. I wasn't in love with him. I didn't even know him. But I was losing interest in pretending that what I had was enough. I didn't want to destroy anything. I just wanted to feel something. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror longer than usual. My lips looked fuller, my eyes sharper. Not because of makeup, because something had awakened. I wasn't sure if I liked it, but I knew I couldn't unsee it now. It started with an impulse. A skipped lecture, an empty hallway, a need to breathe. I didn't plan anything, didn't expect to see him again that day. But when I slipped into the bathroom on the second floor, needing quiet more than privacy, I heard the door creak open behind me. I froze. His voice followed, soft, controlled. "You okay?" I didn't answer at first. I turned to see him leaning against the wall just past the doorway, like he wasn't sure he should be there. I could have asked him to leave. I could have walked out. I didn't do either. I just stared. My silence gave him permission. He took a few steps closer. The air thickened. I couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking silently. Not desperate, not forceful, curious. I tilted my head slightly, searching his face for anything to hold on to. He was calm, patient. I was not. "You're not in class," he said. I shrugged. "Neither are you." A faint smile touched his lips. I didn't smile back. I couldn't. We stood in that space of hesitation, where everything could be stopped and nothing would be ruined yet. But I didn't want to stop. I was tired of stopping. My heart was beating so loud it drowned everything else. My hands were cold. My skin burned. "I've seen how you look at me," I said, quieter than I meant to. He didn't flinch. "You're not imagining it," he replied. The moment tilted. Something gave way inside me. I stepped forward. No more than a foot, but it changed everything. His hand lifted slowly, not touching me, just hovering like he didn't want to break whatever spell was holding us. I leaned in first. Our foreheads touched, breath to breath. I felt the world shrink to one point of contact. The first kiss wasn't gentle. It was heat and urgency, not romance. Months of suppressed hunger burst through. There was no conversation, no slow build-up. My fingers tangled in his collar, his hands gripped my waist like he couldn't believe I was real. We didn't say a word. Time didn't exist in that moment. All I knew was how he felt against me. His body warm, steady, unfamiliar. His mouth traced down my neck like he'd imagined it before. My breath hitched. My legs trembled. My mind tried to catch up with my body, but failed. I let go. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about him, not entirely. It was about feeling wanted, needed, consumed. My name never left his lips, and that made it easier to detach from the guilt that should have stopped me. I didn't care where we were, what could happen, or who could find out. I wasn't thinking at all. We moved in sync, like something primal had taken over. I felt alive, raw, and dangerously free. Every sensation was amplified. The cold wall behind my back, the heat of his breath, the quiet groan he couldn't hold in. My mind screamed at me, but my body had already made its decision. When it was over, the silence felt louder than anything that came before it. I looked at him, trying to read his face. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't ashamed either. Just quiet, like me. He handed me my bag that had slipped from my shoulder. I took it with a shaky hand. No words were exchanged as we walked out. No promises, no apologies. Just a glance, his eyes held no regret. Mine didn't either. Not yet. I went straight to my hostel, locked the door, sat on the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't feel dirty. I felt stripped of something I hadn't known I was carrying all this time. I kept touching my lips, as if the sensation would still be there. My phone vibrated. Rohit again. "How was class?" I stared at it for a full minute before typing. Usual. I lay down without changing clothes. My body felt like it belonged to someone else now. The guilt didn't come that night. Only exhaustion. And a strange sense of calm. Like I had stepped into my own skin for the first time, and it fit differently. I wasn't thinking about what would happen next. Whether Karen would text. Whether I'd avoid him or crave more. That didn't matter yet. For once, I wasn't trapped in overthinking. I had done something irreversible. I didn't need to justify it to anyone. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The next morning, everything looked the same. But I wasn't. I didn't wear more makeup. I didn't dress provocatively. I wasn't trying to recreate anything. But I caught my reflection and saw a version of myself that had been asleep for too long. I didn't look happy or sad. Just aware. When I walked past Karen near the staircase, he didn't stop me. Just a glance. A flicker of something in his eyes. Not possessiveness. Not regret. Just memory. I walked on. Back in class, I opened my notebook to take notes. But all I saw were flashes, his hands, his breath, my voice caught between pleasure and panic. I closed the notebook. There was no plan. No future. Just the weight of what I'd done, and the strange lightness it brought. Something had been broken, but I didn't know if it was good or bad. I only knew it was real. I stopped replying to Rohit's texts as quickly. Sometimes I'd leave him on read for hours, pretending I was in class, pretending I was asleep, pretending I wasn't holding my phone in my hand thinking about someone else. He started to notice. "You seem distant," he said during a call. I told him I was stressed about exams.
He believed me.
He always believed me. Karen didn't text either. Not right away. Not the next day. Or the day after. I kept checking anyway. I hated myself for that. I told myself it meant nothing, that I didn't care, that it was a one-time thing. But when the message finally came, just 2 words, "You good?" my entire body reacted. I stared at it like it had more meaning than it did. I didn't reply. But the damage was done. I was hooked on the memory more than the man. I saw him across the courtyard the next week. He didn't approach, didn't wave, didn't even smile. But his presence burned a hole in my chest. Everything reminded me of what we did. A hand brushing a desk, the sound of footsteps behind me, even the silence of the hostel bathroom. I couldn't escape it. I wanted to be normal again. I wanted to feel the way I did before I let myself fall into that moment. But I couldn't. I looked at Rohit's photos on my phone, swiping through old memories, trying to find the feeling I'd lost. I couldn't remember how his touch felt. I remembered how he looked at me, but not how he made me feel. There was no spark, only safety. I tried to erase Karen from my mind by avoiding him. Different paths, different libraries, different hours. But he was everywhere. Not in body, but in thought. In scent. In sensation. I hated how my body remembered him so easily. It made me angry that something so temporary had rooted itself so deeply. My friends started noticing I was quieter. I brushed it off. They wouldn't understand. No one would. I kept telling myself it was just lust. A chemical misfire. A mistake that needed forgetting. But I didn't feel regret. Just confusion. And craving. Rohit called and said he'd be visiting next weekend. I didn't know how to react. I said okay, forced a smile through the phone. My stomach twisted at the thought. Not because I didn't want to see him, but because I didn't know how to pretend in front of him. I cleaned my room obsessively, not because it was messy, but because I needed control over something. When he arrived, he hugged me tightly, like nothing had changed. I hugged back, careful not to flinch. We went out for lunch. Talked about our old friends, exams, future plans. He made jokes I used to laugh at. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. He didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't want to. That night, he leaned in to kiss me. I let him. His lips felt foreign. I remembered how it used to be, the rhythm we had, the warmth. But now it felt like muscle memory. Like I was going through motions that belonged to someone else. He touched my waist, and I went stiff. I forced a moan. It felt fake, like I was acting for a role I'd outgrown. I stopped him gently. Said I was tired. He understood. He always did. That made it worse. He slept beside me, arms wrapped around my body like a shield. I stared at the ceiling. My heart didn't race. My body didn't ache. It just lay there, hollow. I realized I wasn't missing Karen. I was missing myself, the version of me that came alive in that fleeting, forbidden moment. When he left, he kissed my forehead and said, "I love you." I said it back. It felt like a lie. He didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and didn't want to believe it. I sat in the bathroom after he left. Fully clothed, dry-eyed, exhausted. Not from crying, but from pretending. The mirror didn't accuse me. It showed me what I already knew. I wasn't the same girl anymore. And I wasn't sorry about it. I avoided Karen completely after that. I didn't want more. I didn't want to fall into another moment. But when I passed by him in the cafeteria one afternoon, he glanced up. Our eyes met for 2 seconds. There was no smile, no recognition, just silence. It felt final. Back in my room, I opened my journal and wrote everything I couldn't say out loud. About being torn between loyalty and desire. About feeling trapped in a relationship that was all comfort and no fire. About doing something I couldn't undo and not wanting to. I wrote that maybe infidelity wasn't always about betrayal. Sometimes it was about survival. About breathing again after holding your breath for too long. About touching something real, even if it came with consequences. I didn't write Karen's name. He didn't matter in the long run. What mattered was what he unlocked. The next morning, Rohit texted, "Miss you already." I stared at it. Typed a reply. Deleted it.
Typed again.
Settled on same. But it wasn't true. The texts from Rohit didn't stop. He sent selfies from home, photos of his dog, voice notes filled with laughter that used to warm me, but now felt distant. I replied with polite words, carefully spaced emojis, and a performance so practiced I didn't recognize myself anymore. He noticed. "Are we okay?" he asked one night. I said yes. I didn't mean it. Days moved like fog. I kept to myself more. I stopped checking if Karen was nearby. It no longer mattered. Whatever happened had burned fast and left its ash. I didn't crave him anymore. I craved clarity. What I had done wasn't about him. It was about what had been missing for a long time, before he ever looked at me. I thought about the version of myself I had been with Rohit, loyal, consistent, predictable. I loved him, or at least I thought I did. I had built a future around him, told myself it was safe, enough. But love that's built on history alone starts to decay if it's not watered by something real. Somewhere along the line, I stopped choosing him. I just didn't realize it until I gave myself to someone else. I didn't talk to anyone about what happened. No confessions, no breakdowns. It wasn't guilt that kept me quiet. It was the understanding that no one could fix what was now broken, not even me. I started noticing cracks in our conversations, Rohit talking more, me listening less. He filled the silence with memories. I filled it with nothing. He brought up moving to the same city after college. Said we should look at apartments together. I didn't say no. I also didn't say yes. I let the idea hang in the air like it belonged to someone else. My silence didn't shake him. That scared me more than anything, that he didn't even hear the shift happening. I began to resent how easy it was for him to still believe in us. How blind love can be when it chooses comfort over truth. I didn't want to hurt him. I just didn't want to lie anymore. Pretending to be the girl who waited, who remained unchanged, who loved him exactly the same, had become exhausting. I stared at my reflection one night and said it out loud. I cheated. The word didn't echo, didn't sting. It just sat there. Heavy. Final. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It was a choice. And I had made it with full awareness of what it meant. The next day, I typed a message to Rohit. I didn't confess. I didn't detail what happened. I just said I needed space. That something in me had shifted, and I didn't know how to fix it. He called immediately. I let it ring. He called again. I answered. His voice was panicked, confused. I told him I still cared about him. That I didn't want to lie. That I didn't know how to explain what I felt, only that it wasn't the same anymore. He asked if there was someone else. I paused. There was, I said. Silence. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just asked, "Why?" And I didn't have a perfect answer. I told him I didn't plan it, that it happened once, that it made me realize things I'd been avoiding. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he just whispered, "I wish you told me before it got to this." I told him I wished I had too. But I didn't. And now we were here. He hung up after saying he needed time. I didn't chase him. I owed him the space I had stolen without asking. In the days that followed, I didn't cry. I felt hollow, but not broken. I had always thought that endings came with dramatic emotions, but sometimes they just arrive with a quiet knowing. A deep exhale after holding everything in for too long. I went back to class. Sat through lectures. Ate meals alone. No one knew what had changed, but something had. Karen never came back into the picture. He didn't need to. He had served his purpose. He was the mirror that showed me who I had become, and who I could no longer pretend to be. I never looked at him again. Not out of shame. Out of completion. I started writing again. Not in journals, but in essays, poetry, late-night thoughts typed in the Notes app. I wasn't trying to romanticize what happened. I was trying to understand it. Infidelity isn't just betrayal. Sometimes it's a revelation. Sometimes it's the crack that lets light in, ugly and honest. I didn't tell my friends. Not because I was hiding, but because I no longer needed validation. I had made peace with the complexity. I wasn't proud, but I wasn't drowning in regret either. I had outgrown something, and outgrowth is never clean. One evening, I sat at the edge of campus, alone, watching students rush past. Couples holding hands. Friends laughing. Everyone playing their part in some version of a story. I didn't know what my next chapter would be. I only knew it wouldn't be built on guilt or convenience. It would be mine. When Rohit messaged me again weeks later, it wasn't angry. Just honest. He said he still loved me, but he didn't think we should continue. I agreed. There was no need to dissect it. We had reached our end, quietly and completely. I archived the chat. Didn't delete it. Some endings don't need erasure. They just need acceptance. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged to myself again.